Today we're gonna talk about BANANAB. BANANAB, dude. The first game that I have officially released. Obviously it was a team effort. It's not just me. It's the first game that I've worked on that actually came out. Fuck, man. That's satisfying as hell. You can play it right now. It's on itch. I'm gonna post the link here. I already, I had posted the itch link and the trailer for it on Twitter like a couple weeks ago, month or two ago, I don't know. Got a lot of positive responses. We even got some donations, which was very nice. If you're listening to this and you donated, thank you. Yeah, and I guess I just want to talk about like the game and like the experience of making it. This was definitely the most satisfied I was with any game that I worked on. For those who don't know, I'm a game design student. At this point, most of you probably know this. And every semester, the second half of each semester, we do a collaborative project. We form groups, and then we make a game based on a theme. And this time the theme was Parallel Worlds. This was our third game. I've had mostly completely different groups like every single time. This time with BANANAB, on my team, I have my girlfriend Yulia, who I also work with in the second semester. And then one more artist. I'm not sure if I should name her. Maybe she doesn't want me to, but like, so I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, I had also worked with her on our first game, and I guess I was just very happy that because I was so happy with how we worked together in the first game, and then that she wanted to work with me again. That was really cool. Because like, yeah, I guess like with the first two projects, especially. I guess in my case, but like, okay, so let me back up. I always hear stories from like older students that things can get very heated in those projects. Emotions run very high. Things go wrong. People clash. People disagree with each other. And actually, we saw that kind of shit with some of the other groups in our semester. I'm not gonna talk about what happened there, but like some of the stories I heard were pretty wild. Nothing really even remotely on that level happened to me. It was pretty civil the whole time, and like I think everyone sort of bowed out very like still very respectfully, and like we all still liked each other at the end, even though the process of making the game, obviously there were a lot of small disagreements, right? Small or big, even. And I guess like, yeah, just knowing that you didn't, and when I say you, I mean myself, right? I didn't sort of permanently damage any connections, right, to people I respect. That's very nice. But yeah. The thing was that what was different with BANANAB is that see, with our projects, there's always very quickly this worry that you will not find a group, and then in accordance with that, people will start looking for groups very, very far in advance, and I was never a fan of that, and I always thought that process just generally didn't make a lot of sense, right? Because you can't form a group with people that you've never worked with before, right? And then try to figure out what your idea is. Obviously that's how we did it, how I even did it the first two times, and like even then I could already tell, yeah, this does not work, this is not fun, this is not a good idea. It's like yeah, what we did differently, and I think if I explain that's gonna segue nicely into you know, how group work I think should kind of function. What we did differently this time is well, I mean, yeah, a lot of groups still formed in advance, right? This was not like a enforced thing by the fucking syllabus or whatever. It was just some of us decided, okay, we're gonna pitch ideas based on the theme individually. And then we pitch them to the rest of the class, basically, and form our groups based on that. And that makes a lot more fucking sense, because if the idea is already out there, then you can see, oh, who's actually interested in this idea? Who actually is willing to make this game? And also does not, like, if they're joining your team, they're already saying, yeah, I'm willing to compromise. You know, I'm willing to, like, see through this vision. I'm willing to see through this idea that's already, like, solidified and has, like, a clear direction, right? I think in the second project especially, we had this big brainstorming session right when we got the topic. And the atmosphere was kind of, yeah, everyone was sort of immediately agreeing with the first idea, like with whatever idea anyone threw out, right? And it was not very constructive, and it was difficult to steer the discussion in, like, a meaningful way, right? And I feel like because of that whole group dynamic, we didn't spend enough time on the idea. We didn't spend enough time actually thinking about, okay, how are we actually gonna do it? And, like, that's the thing, like, so the final idea that we went with in the second project, that was mostly my idea, right? And I still think it was, like, largely a good idea, but, like, I feel like I moved on very quickly with it, and I didn't give myself more time to think about it, because you kind of have to appease the group, right? And they want to have a solution very quickly. And, like, I mean, that's the thing, even if you form the group in advance, there's a better way to do it, right? There's a better way to structure the discussion. The better solution would have been, we take a break for a day, then reconvene. Each of us has, like, hopefully thought about, like, one concept at least, and then we just present it, and then we not vote on it, but, like, we sort of just compare and contrast and think about it. First project, I think I did, like, another Patreon thing months ago, where I showed some of that off. And I'm still really happy with, like, the general style and how that was pulled off, and, like, just generally the gameplay and sort of the interactions that were presented in the game, I think were pretty promising. But there were also, because blah, group dynamic, right? It's when someone has an idea and they just charge forward with it, it's hard to say no to that and say, maybe that's actually not efficient with, like, assets and shit, yeah. And then it just ended up happening that way anyway. And the frustrating thing was, with both projects, they were pretty much, like, finished games, but there were some really glaring flaws with both of them, right? That had me very unsatisfied. And there was a lot of logistical issues for why they couldn't be fixed, right? It was, you know, mostly it was like, yeah, one person was, like, mostly handling the code, and that person was not me in both of those cases. And we did not establish, like, a good infrastructure for, okay, if Zia, for example, me, if I want to do changes, how would I do it, right? that was just never clearly established. So I could, like, I personally, I was like, yeah, I would like to do this, but like I need help. And then nobody offered help, and like things just kind of languished. And the games just ended up in a state where I was not comfortable releasing them, you know? So our first game is like actually not released at all. You can't play it. It's nowhere to be found. Our second game, it is on a, there's like a browser version of it that you can play, but I'm not gonna link it. Because there's just a lot of little stuff that I'm really unhappy with. I'm like, I would just like to fix it ideally, but third project was way different and way better. BANANAB was it. It was both the fact that, yeah, we had just a way better group dynamic from the very start. Because we went in with a pre-established idea, which was my idea, yeah. It is weird, like, yeah, just thinking about, like, every single project I've worked on. I never sort of positioned myself as the leader type. And even in the third project, right, where I was clearly, like, the initiator. And, like, actively seeking out the group members and stuff. And they approached me and all that. Even then, I still did not feel like, oh, I'm in charge of the project, you know? I'm like, I mean, I wasn't in charge of the project management even, for example. I'm just not that type of personality, right? I just like putting ideas out there, I guess. And still, in all three cases, it's very interesting that the end product was always like very, very much like something that I pictured at the start. And I mean, is it shitty of me to say it like that? Like, does it sound like I'm pumping myself up? I really don't mean to. I guess I just want to say, yeah, I'm proud of myself, and like I'm proud that like people actually liked those ideas that I presented. And then that allowed everyone else's creativity to shine as well. And yeah, with BANANAB, again, like I said, good group dynamic immediately. And like, it was like sort of very quickly established, right? I was the only quote-unquote designer on the project. So that, I guess that helped in the sense that there was not a lot of butting heads in that sense. But like, I think, yeah, because of that also, because I pitched it and stuff, everyone sort of very quickly respected my autonomy, and like my decision making and sort of my thought process. And I think I want to say I handled that responsibility pretty well, because we actually made a huge change with the project based on feedback. And that was something, like, I had to budge from my original plan, right? After being convinced that was the correct idea. That was the correct move. Basically, BANANAB. It's a obstacle course game. Split screen. With a kind of isometric camera, and the twist is that it's two contestants, and they start on opposite ends of the same racetrack. And the idea was that, see, I don't really recall if it was like inspired by Tenet, or if I thought of it and then realized, hey, I'm like basically ripping off Tenet. I'm not sure what the chain of events was there anymore. But yeah, the idea was, okay, one player is moving forward in time and the other is moving backward in time. And maybe there's like some crazy lore thing, oh, they're actually the same person or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter, right? Like, it was just kind of an excuse to say that they're not actually inhabiting the same physical space, right? But their actions still have an effect on the world. The idea is that as you traverse this obstacle course, you can make changes to the course, and that will make it harder for your opponents to traverse traverse from the opposite direction. So essentially, the idea is that as you're platforming, as you're running, you lay traps for your opponent ahead of time, ahead of when they're gonna show up in the same spot eventually. So yeah, it was kind of like this two-way game, pun intended, I guess, in that you look at the opponent's screen to see what they're doing, and then also you're on the same racetrack and you're on your screen, and you're in this mindset of, okay, I can because I'm here, I can see what obstacles they're gonna face eventually, my opponent. So I need to anticipate what is the best way to fuck them up, basically, to slow them down so that I reach the goal first. And then obviously the goal is like a big stack of bananas, and it's really cute and colorful and cartoony, and I love it. And yeah, our artists just did a fucking fantastic job. That was the basic pitch. There was like one small difference. Well, I guess it depends on how you quantify it, but initially it actually was a more sideways perspective. I don't know. I guess like the best point of comparison would be like something like Streets of Rage, right? It was kind of like that, where you move up and down. Like it's full 3D movement. It's a 3D environment, but you look at it from this sideways, kind of top down, kind of tilted, whatever angle. But then we changed it. I very early on decided, no, I think it's better to split the screen diagonally in the center instead of horizontally, and then pull the camera up more, because I think we just use the screen space a lot better. And it just looks more dynamic as well. Yeah, I think it was also just from a more top-down angle, it was easier to judge the platforms better and shit. So that was a very early change that we made. I think we just we sort of sat together and we were like, oh, cool. And then went off for the day, and then I was thinking to myself, no, I fucked up. This is stupid. I need to change it. And I told her, no, we need to change the camera, I'm sorry. That was before we had even done any fucking programming, right? But yeah, the only other thing that was sort of part of the initial pitch was that there's going to be monkeys. There's going to be a third and fourth player, and they would take control of these monkeys. And it's an optional game mode. And when you're this monkey, you're on a team with one of the players, but you're actually positioned next to the opponent, right? You start on the same side as the opponent, and you run alongside them, and you try to fuck them up by throwing banana peels. That was the basic idea, and the intent was kind of that. It adds a little bit more chaos to the game, but also you, as the monkey, you would have to synergize with the human player, right? Where you position the banana peels needs to be sort of considered based on what the human player had already done, right? Or has already done, I should say, yeah. So my favorite fucking example for an obstacle in this game was this water pond, where you have these lily pads, and you jump on the lily pads to cross, and then when you jump on one of the lily pads, it drowns in the water, right? So you can cross the pond by using only a few of the lily pads, but you could also intentionally just jump on all of them to force the opponents to slowly swim across, right? That obstacle was the one that I always use to explain the premise. I guess Yeah, like in pitches, in game pitches, that's really important, right? Have a practical example for why the game is interesting. And that was always the one that I went back to, because it was very simple to understand as well. And the basic idea was, yeah, we're gonna do 4 obstacles, and then each one is gonna have an easy and a hard version. You know, it was just the most logical way to be efficient with the assets that we had. And then in between those main obstacles, you would have some stretches of kind of just regular platforming where yeah, you're running over like planks and shit to collect stuff. I'm gonna get more into that as we go. And the game was like very modularly built in that the individual obstacles are like we made everything in Unreal, and the individual obstacles were their own like blueprints, right? Their own classes or whatever. So it was like just a small section of like 3D geometry that you could edit and tweak, and then the algorithm would just randomly place it somewhere on the track. It's very cool. So props to our programmer, who pulled all that off really quickly, and like who just had a very structured approach and a structured mindset with this whole project. Yeah. So everything was looking good. And like I said, like, yeah, as the monkey in that scenario, right? Maybe your human partner, they missed one of the lily pads. So for you as the monkey, it's like, oh, okay, I need to throw my banana peel on the exact lily pad that they left over. I still think though, like that whole angle could have been really cool, right? And just getting 4 people in a room is like, you know, you think to yourself, yeah, it's always just more fun, right? That way. Yeah. However, there was a problem. I guess maybe saying it was there was a problem is not entirely accurate. Basically, the way our projects are structured is that we have 3 presentations. We have 3 times that we present our project. So the first pitch, the intermediate, and then the final. We had a very clear sort of outline for how for our own internal deadlines and for when we want to have certain things done. And we were always following that, and we actually we did a really good job keeping that in mind and setting realistic goals, right? And part of that was that we said very early on we're not going to implement the art until after the intermediate presentation, right? And for our pipeline and for our production and like our workflow and whatever, that made a lot of sense, right? That was the right call. But we didn't. It was very hard to show the game in the intermediate presentation, right? Like it still wasn't really in a very it's pretty funny, like if you like it really just looked like a basic Unity prototype. Well, it was Unreal, but whatever. Yeah, it didn't look like a game yet in the intermediate, and then in the final, you know, spoilers, a lot of people were just shocked at just how much it had progressed. Well, it was always part of the plan, you know. A lot of the assets were already done, we just hadn't implemented them yet. For us, it made perfect sense, but it just, again, it didn't make the best impression. And I still think, you know, we made the right call. It was just that you can kind of understand that, yeah, for everyone else, they're not really gonna get it, right? They just don't have the same insight that we do, obviously. So we still got like positive feedback generally. Our game design professor, though, he made some suggestions, right? He didn't really have huge criticism, right? He was just saying, oh, okay, there's like some things you should pay attention to. Number 1 is it seems like it's gonna be problematic, and this was the most important point. It seems like there's a strong sort of chance that if the two players, the two human players, if they don't have a direct means of interacting with each other, that could make the game pretty stale. So there should be something like that. And see, by that point, we hadn't really playtested the game yet. But I was like, huh, you know, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, my thinking was, it's a game where I'm constantly sort of thinking about what the opponent's doing, right? I'm constantly looking at the screen and planning around that. And I thought that's engaging enough, probably. That's my phone. But maybe it's not. And that was when the first, like, seed of doubt was planted. The other two suggestions that he had, a little more minor. Number one, give players ways to catch up. It seems like if you, if you fall behind pretty early on, then, and like that, at that point, that was probably true, right? If you fall behind pretty early on, it's gonna be hard for you to catch up. That was also something that I, like, we had kind of thought about it. We want to have some kind of power up that makes you speed up or something, and you need to incur some kind of risk, right? I mentioned that in between the main obstacles, you have stretches where you're kind of doing more basic platforming. And I was thinking, okay, maybe you collect some kind of coin or whatever, and you get 5 of them, and then you speed up, for example. And getting to the coins requires a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? A detour. You need to take a little bit of a detour, right? That was it. You need to go paths that are a little bit more roundabout, and that if you fuck up, you're gonna waste your time, right? But if you don't fuck up, you get a speed boost, and that's really helpful. But that was, like, not a fleshed out concept yet, right? So the suggestion, yeah, give players a way to catch up, very valid. The other thing is, he suggested, yeah, you need to make the meeting of the two players feel special. And that's something, like, we had, like, a system implemented for, like, visuals, right? Like, for how the players are visually represented on each other's screens. But it's also something I hadn't seriously thought about yet. And I thought, fuck, actually, that makes a lot of sense, right? So, I think either the same day or the day after, our programmer had one of our classmates actually playtest. He came over to his place, and then they played it together, and they recorded the whole session. And both of them were really bored with the game. They were basically not playing around each other at all. They were not looking at each other's screens. They did not care about what the other person did, right? And, like, a lot of the obstacles, that was one thing, right, where I knew, okay, the obstacles just weren't finely tuned yet. There was a lot of little tweaks that still had to be made to make the obstacles themselves more engaging. But I could tell the actual premise of the game wasn't working yet. And, you know, we were all pretty disheartened. And our programmer, sorry, I'm gonna sit up with my feet on my chair because I'm a monkey. Because it's a monkey themed game, you know, it's very important. It's very appropriate. Yeah, our programmer suggested, hey, what if we just cut the monkeys, and then with the time that frees up, with the time and the resources that frees up, we can do something else. He was thinking some kind of item boxes or whatever, kind of like Mario Kart. So I was very attached to the monkeys at that point still. We had already done like the model for the monkeys and the animations for them, right? And the biggest problem was that we didn't actually have an idea yet, right? We didn't know yet what we would replace the monkeys with. That was my big problem, right? I was not really that opposed to the idea of drastically changing the game. It was more that I wasn't really presented with an alternative yet. So I really fucking thought about it for a day. And what I came up with was, what if both players collect bananas throughout the whole thing, right? There's just bananas fucking everywhere, and you collect them. And then when you get a certain number of them, you can press a button, and the banana peels will rain down over your opponent, right? Wherever your opponent currently is. And then they will present a new obstacle in that way. And then the monkey model that we had already made in the animations we had already made, that would just be the skin for player 2, right? So what does that do? It leverages the stuff that we already have, right? It's, we already had sort of the mechanic. We already had the banana peel as an item, like, implemented, right? Because we already wanted to do that for the monkeys as a throwable resource. That was already in the game, like the collision, the fucking, you can trip over the banana peels. That was already all in there. So I just used that thing that we were already kind of planning, just put it in a way different context. Our programmer, he had not worked on the throwing mechanic yet, like monkeys throwing bananas, which would have been complicated. And then the monkeys themselves, they, as you know, players 3 and 4, they would have required a lot of extra work with the camera and with teleporting and stuff. We were thinking, yeah, if they walk off screen, they like teleport back to the respective player. Like that would have added like a whole lot more complexity to the whole thing. And he had not started on that yet at all. He had not done any work on that. So cutting that just made, like, that would have been the most time consuming aspect. And cutting that when we did was like probably a really good call, I think. Probably really good. It was a really good call, right? That's how you know I'm an introvert and like I'm really shy and not confident, because I always have to put everything in relative terms. Yeah. So that's one thing, right? I didn't waste any work with that decision. And then number 2, it solves all of the issues that were raised by our game design professor. And with the playtest, right? It actually solves all of those things. And it just fits the basic premise of the game really well. It synergizes with the premise of the game already. Because naturally, to know when to throw the bananas, right? To know when to rain down the bananas, you need to look at your opponent's screen, right? And that's what we want you to do anyway. We wanted to get you to look at the opponent's screen all along, which we couldn't before, right? We just, with the mechanics presented, we just didn't incentivize you enough to do that. Now you're always doing it, right? Now you're always having a reason to do it, and that obviously has a knock-on effect on just the trap-based gameplay that, you know, the game was already kind of built on. But then having to collect the bananas as well adds a different layer to the actual obstacles. It gives you a way more like tangible choice between, okay, do I actually min-max and get all the fucking bananas, or do I try to get past the obstacles as quickly as possible? And then those kinds of mechanics are very proportionally related, right? So if I want to make the obstacle as hard as possible for my opponent. That probably also includes just getting all the banana peels, right? Not banana peels, bananas. The idea is that, yeah, your character, they pick up the banana, eat it, and then they keep the peel. And then I made, like, eating sounds for both the human and the monkey. You can hear those if you play the game. Yeah, and like it also, I didn't mention this yet, but it also solves the issue of making the meeting of the players feel special, because what I added is this touch that you throw twice the number of bananas when you're close to your opponent. So that gives you an extra incentive to like hold on to them, and like it can look really fucking crazy. Like the way the game is balanced, there's a lot of fucking bananas on the racetrack. And I forget the exact number, but like I'm gonna post some screenshots here. It's fucking ridiculous how many bananas you can throw. And I think we really accomplished that. Like that feels very memorable when that happens. Yeah. So I was really happy with that change, and honestly, I was very proud of myself for like coming up with that very quickly, and like yeah, like just again like an idea that actually solved every issue, you know? And again, leveraged what we already had. An idea that didn't throw anything away. Honestly, I'm just thinking about it, man. That's really cool. I'm really just happy with myself, and the game immediately, again, like our programmer, he actually play tested it again in the same sort of setting with the same person, and it was way more fun. He was he like came back to us and said, yeah, like we were laughing the whole time. It just went way fucking better, and I was so happy when I heard that. Fuck, man. I'm a little bit emotional, you know? Fuck, and like, everyone just did such a good job. I'm really fucking happy with how the game looks as well. I was responsible for like, picking all the music, and I designed all the sounds. And yeah, like I said, our programmer, he just did such a good job, again, like getting us into the whole process of it. Specifically me and like our 3D artist. He like built the system in a really nice way that we could get into the engine and like tweak things very easily. Like I said, the game was very modular. Yeah, you had like, for every obstacle, for example, you had like a chunk of geometry that you could edit, but then those chunks, they had like a design version, like that's just a layout of things, an art version, and a programming version, right? And then those sort of classes are in a hierarchy, right? So if I make a change in the design thing, then the art version of that obstacle will inherit the change, right? It was really clever. And just after that experience, I felt just so much more confident with using an engine, and like I don't know, like I knew what I was doing. I knew what I had to tweak, and I could confidently make my own changes. And I really didn't have that sense before with previous projects, because unfortunately we just didn't really properly build that infrastructure. But that time it worked out really fucking well. And like pushing stuff on GitHub is so satisfying. I can't even begin to tell you. Yeah, man. What else is there to say? Yeah, like I said, I was like tweaking sounds up to the last minute. Like I remember our programmer was like, yeah, I'm gonna lock down the build, like at 2 p.m. or whatever that day. And I knew, okay, I like woke up really early, and I just the whole day I worked on my changes. I just did everything I wanted to still do. I was still looking for like songs because I was not happy with the music. But no, I am pretty happy. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of the sound effects as well. I did a lot of them in Ableton. Ableton Live music production software. You probably know it. I think the menu sounds came out pretty well. I used like MIDI instruments and like actually timed it, and like it's pretty fun. Again, the monkey is like all me. The monkey, like all the monkey noises, that's all me. The human voice is like mostly pulled from Freesound, whatever. I just did the eating sound. I did like a nom, 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 like that. Yeah, man. So yeah, I even showed it to my parents. And I guess they thought it was kind of cool. You know, I think they just don't really get it. That's fine. My sister was very impressed. Yeah. I hope you give the game a shot. You do need 2 Xbox X input whatever controllers. The game's like the way the program kind of works right now is like you can't play it with the mouse and keyboard right now, and you can only play with X input controllers. I haven't tested like with Steam or whatever. To be honest, I went back right now, so I can't even record more footage because the game we only have a Windows build. Yeah. But yeah, it's on itch. You can download it. You can play it. There's a gameplay video. There's a trailer. Yeah. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed this whole story. Again, it was like I think I went into a lot of detail, and like it was basically the whole development history of BANANAB, right? The fucking classic GOTY 2021. And like, yeah, like I said, it's the first project that I actually like released to the public, and where I go out of it like with absolutely no regrets. I'm just I'm so happy that we made that change halfway through the project. Yeah. I think it just shows that just our group dynamic was very, very solid. And that we didn't put ourselves in a box, you know? Yeah. Dude, I got the fucking Kim Kardashian, the vocal fry, the Kim Kardashian vocal fry. Yeah, I'm gonna listen back to this and cringe. And then go to bed. It's very late. Yeah, peace out.